Chapter 7. Taylor. I knew if I didn't get the fuck out of that cabin, that I would blow up or hit that sanctimonious dick. Chad was nothing like his brother Cody, and after a careful thought I'd compared the two men, I realized that I'd been right about Chad, and totally right about Cody. They looked alike, both with that dark hair, green eyes with a hint of brown. I could be wrong, but I thought Chad was more handsome than Cody, and more open to change. Maybe I was seeing them through a different lens. The one where I'd fallen in love and couldn't see any of Chad's faults anymore. I'd fallen hard for Chad, and I saw all men now as being less than Chad, and especially Cody. It was something about Cody, maybe his arrogant, superior nature made him unattractive, not just to me, but perhaps to others. He was unfiltered, said whatever came to his mind, with no empathy for the next man, and especially none for his brother. I had been breathing hard, more pissed than I'd been in years, after walking the path around the cottage to calm down before I punched Cody. When I started hiking to get some air, I took the manicured path with the flowers leading back to Grail's ranch. I glanced up, saw the sun overhead, which was warmer than usual, and I fished out my phone to check the time and found it was 12:30 and my stomach had given me a hint. I realized that I hadn't eaten much, and neither had Chad, because of the night we had. It was mystical, and I'd lost my appetite. My stride was long, as I turned in the direction of the ranch where I'd closed the distance from the cottage. It would be only a few minutes and I would be there, where I knew there would be more than just party food and beer. Augustine would be catering this affair as Parker swore by his food, and I'd had a sampling of it in the cottage. Eating his food was like sitting in an exclusive restaurant. As I passed the beautiful fall colors given off by the colorful flowers, I stopped to gather some. I thought after what had gone on in the cabin, that I'd bring Chad some flowers to ward off the bad karma that Cody brought to our getaway. Flowers always made me smile, and gave me the feeling that things would be better, and they symboled life. It was flowering plants that first gave mankind the substances they needed to survive. Those elective college courses in biology came in handy to change my way of thinking about the world, and lest I forget to raise my GDP as well as to give me something to think about today. I could have taken an art class, pottery or drawing. Heaven knows the classes in drawing could have helped me get a job as a tattoo artist, and I would have made more money, but the only thing pottery and art would have done was make my hands stronger, because I couldn't draw a straight line or pull a vase without it collapsing on me, and the art class was only good if I'd planned on specializing in the arts or giving out hand jobs, and since my major wasn't in the arts, then I thought I'd made the right choice with biology. I even learned the parts of the body to arouse and stimulate. I'd learned that on my own with careful research and practice. I'd say that the money I doled out on elective courses was well spent. However, if I'd paid attention in my high school biology class, instead of skipping classes to go to the park to fuck the new guy in town, then I would have passed biology in college with an A instead of a B. I chuckled at the thought when I spotted Parker heading up the path. "What are you doing, Parker?" "It's certainly not stopping to smell the roses," Parker said with a serious glare to his eyes. "Those aren't roses," I persuaded him. "Yes, you're right, Taylor. I needed to know if Chad's brother fucked up the magic in that particular cabin. Everything was going so well, and then Cody showed up. He reminded me of Austin, and I bet he has a cat. I talked to him on the phone earlier, and he couldn't even act civilized. Just because he was born with a gold dildo up his ass doesn't make him talk down to people. Everything about Cody is pretentious and self-serving, and I don't like the way he treats Chad. You will try to protect Chad, will you?" "I promise you that I won't let anything happen to him. I worry because he's so vulnerable now. That's the way Tony was, and I have a special place in my heart for a soldier, especially those who have seen battle. I think Chad is on a ledge because of the extent of his injuries, and that's why I paired you with him. I didn't know you from the next Joe Blow, but it was something about your attitude that reminded me of myself. You just needed the right man and you'd come around, and Chad needed someone to love him, see his heart and that handsome face, and forget that he is missing a couple of limbs. Deep down I thought I knew the answer, but I had to hear it for myself. But you knew he was straight. I don't understand. He may have been straight, but he didn't dislike gay men. He had respect for them, and because of his injuries, he probably understood the isolation and need to be with someone that they felt. His brother Cody is gay, and when he first came to the shop, I heard how he talked so lovingly about him and the problems he had years ago, and because of that, he'd left for the city where he could find someone like himself. And I paired you with him because he was so down, and he thought he didn't belong around gay men. I think, although he had a gay brother, that there was something simmering inside that had to be worked out. He had to understand that men were men, whether they were gay or not, and looking at your rosy cheeks and face. You two have come to an understanding. You look as if the cabin has worked its magic. I didn't know if Parker believed that the cabin had magic, and I wasn't going to tell him that maybe it was two people coming together and finding out that they were indeed meant to be with each other, that had worked and not some fairy tale, and that was all the magic that was needed in a relationship. That feeling I got being in Chad's arms and with him inside my body was all it took for me, and I couldn't speak for Chad. However, I couldn't help but think maybe it was true. Yes, the cottage worked its magic, because Chad asked me to move in with him. What do you think, Parker? I think you should. Cody is the big brother, and he will have lots to say to Chad, but it's you who will have the final say. It all depends on you and what you do. You would think he'd be happy knowing that Chad has a gay lover, because he's gay. I don't know if it makes him uncomfortable or not, Parker said, looking around at everyone, and frowning when he spotted Austin, and Zach with his finger in Austin's mouth and Austin sucking it. Now that's plain garish and almost obscene. I have a mind to tell them to take it inside their room. Some people are just so demonstrative. Who the fuck wants to know about their mating habits? Then Parker turned to me with a full smile and said, "The food is ready and you can take some back to Chad. Let that dick Cody get his own. Get your food and get back to your man, while I try to intervene with some of the squabbling going on. You would think that they would be respectful of another man's home. Look at those two." Parker turned and eyed two handsome men eating off the same plate. Parker leaned in and whispered, "Over there, if you haven't met them, are Cole and Keys. Keys is the one feeding Cole. He's a rich mechanic. He promised to find me a vet, and he's going to restore it for me. I can't wait. Cole is Grail's friend and movie whore, if you haven't been filled in. He hasn't seen an old movie he doesn't like. I think he fucks Keys while watching Hitchcock. Don't quote me on this, but that's what I heard. Furthermore, the only thing Cole is rich in is his degree, which doesn't pay very much at the college. And I heard that there was someone coming between them in bed, and it's not Hitchcock." Then he whispered once more and said, "I hear it's the new professor at the college across the street from Coffee, Tea, and Thee." Parker left me at the outside buffet table to circulate, as if he'd organized everything. He just loved to come in and take over. He had a knack for doing that and convincing people. He'd said when he was in full gossip mode that if he could sell a straight combat veteran on him, he could sell anything, and most times he did. I took a few minutes to move around and speak to everyone, because I'd been thrust into this group, and I didn't know if I would be accepted because of the situation with Brian, but no one judged me. However, because I'd done Parker a favor, and he'd indeed done one for me when he placed me with Chad, that worked out beyond my expectations. I was happy to talk to all the couples, and they were, to my surprise, quite warm. Filling up 2 plates for both of us, I hurried back to the cabin, and along the way I picked up the flowers I'd left on a bench and tucked the stems into my pocket. When I stood, I met eye to eye a pair of greens staring at me, and in front of me were these long legs and hard cock I stared down at because it was so obvious when he palmed it. "My brother is waiting for you," he said in a dry, harsh voice. "Don't you have things to do for him? And where are his prostheses?" "Yes, I know he's waiting. And I've been waiting for him my whole life, and to answer your question, he doesn't use them unless he's trying to build up his lower half. Right now he's working on his chest and arms," I added, trying to make conversation without being dull, and I tried to warm him up. The only thing that appeared hot was his look, and the hard cock he didn't try to hide from me. He glared at me with wandering eyes that resembled Chad's green eyes with a brown circle. Cody had dark hair and dimples, but Chad did not get the dimples, he got everything else. Cody was a stunning man, and I pictured Chad with long legs like Cody before he'd lost them, but that didn't make the man. I could have fallen hard for Cody on first sight if I'd met him in a bar, or wherever, but I was glad I wasn't that superficial and had learned to be selective, because Cody was a man that had been used to breaking hearts, and he would have broken mine because of his arrogance and coldness. Nevertheless, if I'd met Chad's brother Cody first, and under any other circumstances, for example a bar, and I'd been drunk, I might have let him take me home and fuck me, and he looked the type that wanted to be the boss, a top even, and thank goodness that wasn't to be if you believed in karma and the spiritual principle of cause and effect. I had been accused of a lot of things, but you couldn't accuse me of being shallow. I thought Parker and Brian called me narcissistic, self-absorbed, vain, and I'd plead guilty to all of that until I met Chad. Chad brought out the warmth and best in a man, and I was the beneficiary of all his goodness and sacrifice. "What are you doing with my brother?" I didn't know how to take that question. What did he mean? I thought he'd clarify that question, and he did. One day he's straight, and the next time you're here, and clearly you've been fucking him and he's gay. Did you have anything to do with him going that route? I let him have his say. Reveal his personality, as they said, although he'd done that the moment he entered the cabin. "You know he's an invalid and rich," Cody went on to say. I didn't know he was rich, but he's certainly not an invalid. "Don't play coy with me and try your simplistic banter because I know your kind," he hissed. "In this town everyone knows everyone, because of the schools we've attended. Now take Grail and Caden, they had resources and choices because they were what you called the upper middle class, and their parents could afford private schools, but they didn't choose to do that. Maybe it was because of pompous, arrogant dicks like you," I thought with a smile. Now Chad and I were different, and so were our friends. We went to private schools and were born into wealth. Chad had to be different, and he chose the service out of college. He had a girlfriend, he's not gay. Is that what's bothering you? Of course not. I'm bothered by you taking up with him, and he's an invalid. I had to stop him before I slugged him for saying that word, over and over. I said before that he's not an invalid. He can do things you and I couldn't imagine without the use of legs. He's strong, every part of him is powerful, and nothing is wrong with his brain or his sexuality. He lost his legs, he didn't lose his mind or his desire to have sex, so get over it, I said, staring him down. I can see that you and I have a problem, Cody barked, and placed his arms over his impressive chest. Only if you try to come between me and Chad. If you love him and want the best for him, then leave us alone, I said. He planted his feet, pulled the flowers from my pocket, and glanced at them. It's going to take more than a few flowers to fix what's ailing my brother, Taylor. Maybe for you to not remind him that he's an invalid, and can't do the things you're capable of doing, like annoying everyone you come in contact with. The only handicap Chad has is you. When it comes to anything else like walking or fucking, he's all man. Cody narrowed his gaze and offered me a sour look, bit the inside of his jaw, then turned on the balls of his feet and strode away. I picked up the food that had gotten cold, tucked the flowers back inside my pocket, and hurried on to the cabin, because I was sure if I didn't return fast, that Chad would be in his wheelchair searching for me.